Hi, very warm welcome. It's Dean from Avstar. Just wanted to get your opinion, and maybe if you have a little bit of time, you could put your thoughts down in the comment section about the mismanagement of funds globally now that are raised by the taxpayers but spent very poorly, to say the least, by these politicians. Any scientific organisation out there could quickly establish the truth about carbon dioxide and methane, but they're not interested in the truth. They're interested more about following a narrative and supporting governments, because when it comes down to CO2, they are raising now, the United Nations, 1 trillion a year. That's half of the UK's GDP almost. It's not just the money that's been wasted on this industry that has been brought in falsely on false information as to the cause of what is changing our jet streams. And on the top left there, I've put a picture of our jet streams both over the northern hemisphere and southern hemisphere, just to give you an idea, as to give you some explanation as to what's causing this. You see, our Earth's magnetosphere has weakened just a little over 20% over the last 100 years, and continues to weaken faster as time goes on, which in its own right is an indication, if we're just following the magnetosphere's strength and output, is an indicator that something dramatic is taking place with our Earth, and people need to pay attention to this, because without a magnetosphere there simply isn't any life. So when you compare carbon dioxide, CO2, with the magnetic poles reversing on our planet, well, it's clear that one is way more substantial and dangerous to the cost of life across all ranges of species on our planet than what they're saying about carbon dioxide. I already now know that carbon dioxide is simple plant food, and it's a trace gas. Yet the thugs, criminals that running the Western countries and other countries around the world have chosen to ostracise carbon dioxide as a result, and in doing so, tax us all heavily. It's not just the taxes that they raise and me and you pay for that, it's the change in industry, what they've done. And I'll just give you, for instance, there's no point talking too much about it, but just for instance, the automotive industry and manufacturing of automotive vehicles, lorries, cars, ships even now are, having to be much cleaner than what they was in the way they burn their heavy crude oils. And of course, it is going to put an industry out of business, because there's not really a lot that airline companies and carriers can do about the fuel types they use, and it is not likely that we're going to see electric Boeing 747s and A380s in the near future, simply because the weight of the batteries would not make it very feasible. Well, even if it was, the distance at which these new aircraft with electric jet engines could travel would be shortly reduced. So, looking at that top left picture, we can see that the jet streams are no longer in their nice positions of where they should be, like the polar jet stream at 60 degrees north and the subtropical jet stream at 30 degrees north. And of course, when you get freezing cold air with the polar jet stream fragmenting, as you can see in that picture, and coming down into the tropics, well, of course, as it cools, it is going to dump that precipitation that's been out by the jet stream. And as a result, we are seeing now more and more, I could do it every day, it seems now, that somewhere around our world there is, records being broken with large quantities of rain being dropped in a very short space of time, breaking 100-year, 200-year and even more year records. So I just wanted to get your opinion on your thoughts about, how you feel about our governments mismanaging public taxpayers' money, and they do have a duty to spend it wisely, honestly, and be accountable, in how they spend it. But when you see them, like they have done recently, Sir Keir Starmer, our Prime Minister, has recently came out and said things are going to get worse. I'm not joking. I'm not going to beat around the bush. I'm just going to tell you in October, things are going to get more worse, and people are going to feel even more of a pinch. Well, I just want to put it to you, if you're in the UK, how much worse could it get than what it is now? He's taken, is the ironicity of this, he has taken the winter fuel allowance off the elderly people, and at the same time he is budgeting to give Israel weapons funds and Ukraine weapons and funds. He's also upping the amount of money that he'll be spending, not just on the military, but how much they will be giving to NATO this year. All at the same time as taking the winter allowance off the elderly people. The elderly people, and you know this, doesn't matter whatever country you're in, if it weren't for the elderly people, we wouldn't have cities and towns that we've got today. These people have all paid their dues, and they're being asked to pay again. But it should come to no surprise, if you're elderly and listening to this, that nothing ever seems to change, and no matter what you say, these politicians do not listen. And it is a no wonder why we see politicians that come into power, very rapidly over a space of less than 5 years, end up with large quantities of money in their own bank accounts. Now, how can that be when conflict of interest is supposed to not happen? What I'm saying is that these people that are making this money, these politicians, as Nancy Pelosi's a fine character, to point at, but Sir Keir Starmer, accordingly to the Daily Times, he's worth between 7.7 million and 10 million pounds already. Can you believe that? We knew Richie Sunak and the family that he's associated with on his wife's side are billionaires. And, on one hand, they say that, we will prosecute tax avoidance. And on the other hand, people like Richie Sunak are benefiting from tax breaks through having offshore head offices. It's not right. It's completely wrong. And it shouldn't be allowed to happen. And, as a member of the general public, it doesn't matter whether I'm British or I was in the United States or Canada, Australia or anywhere in Europe, that what I'm saying here is right. If you can't afford to pay your elderly citizens, a little break off their energy costs during the winter period when they need it more than anyone, but you can find the money to fund wars in Ukraine and in Israel, then there's something terribly, terribly gone wrong. And on top of this, guys, it's not just the behaviour of these politicians, and it's not going to make any difference, guys. I know you've got your election in the United States in November, but do you think Donald Trump isn't going to, as soon as he gets in, borrow more money? Of course he will. It's already at the national debt 35.25 trillion, and it is rising. And I said to you about a week ago, let's come back in 3 weeks. The reason why I said that is because it won't be 35.25 trillion. It will be 35.5 trillion. That's how fast the national debt is rising. And Keir Starmer, our Prime Minister, is no better than any other country leader around the world. They're all as bad as each other. And it is the wrong thing to do to remain silent about it. Because, I do engage where I can. I've signed a petition for Keir Starmer, even though he's only been in less than 60 days in his position. I signed a petition the other day for him to go. And that is, I believe, getting on now for over 250,000 signatures. Because of his double standards. He says it wasn't in his manifesto to up the taxes. He's going to up the taxes. He's also gone back on his word about the winter fuel allowance for the elderly people in this country. And I think that just about is enough. And he's not just the biggest corporate in the world. They're all just as bad as each other. But my point is this, guys, they're not listening. And when they make up nonsense about CO2 causing climate change, when the real cause of climate change is that weakened magnetosphere, allowing more cosmic rays in and radiation from our sun, and radiation and galactic cosmic radiation from outside our solar system into an already weakened heliosphere, and then in turn into a weakened magnetosphere, then it's no wonder the clouds are going to have seeding effects in the jet streams. The precipitation is going to form in them jet streams, and we are going to see dislocation when there is just way too much water up in them jet streams, and we will see polar jet streams mixing with subtropical, both over the northern and southern hemispheres of our planet, and that will inevitably cause more rain, more floods at short sporadic amounts of times. The magnitude of the rain will be increased, the frequency will be much over a shorter period of time, but the damage will be 5 times more than what is normally expected during seasonal rains around the world, and that leads to crop failures. China are banning exports of food. India are struggling. We've seen floods all over the Middle East and in other parts of the countries. Even in the United States, you're not going without your quantity of rain over there as well. It is something that no money is being spent on at any justifiable amount, and for the majority of people that talk about climate being caused by carbon dioxide, they don't even know that our planet is going through a magnetic reversal right now, or even at an excursion level. We'll just have to wait and see. So I'd be interested to know what your thoughts are. There is a link down there in the description, guys. I said I'd keep the data and the information coming for you guys, as long as you helped yourselves and a few others. I would do that, and that was my promise, and I've kept it. We have put the information of the latest magnetic pole back on YouTube for everybody to see, and we have enjoyed an extra 1,300 subscribers over the last 28 days, and I guess that those people are coming so that they can gain back access to that information once again. So there is a link down there, but we all need to do our little bit, and we need to talk about these topics more often than what we do, and if we can, do our very best to change the policies of these corrupt politicians that we have so ready for at the moment. So link down there. I am very grateful for those that help and support, and I think the only other thing for me to say is tune in a couple of days when we do the latest magnetic pole position, and take care of your loved ones. Meanwhile, as always, bye for now.